How many of these media outlets shows have you done so far for Spirit?
I don't know. Not a lot.
So we're early. We're early in the media circuit.
I haven't been paying any attention to that kind of stuff, really.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense. That tracks. Especially given the nature, that might be something that a younger part of you might have been seduced to do or something.
Yeah, I don't even know how many copies of my books I've sold.
Yeah.
I get very direct advice that's none of your business, Bob.
Uh-huh. That's great.
I don't have time to take care of what is my business, so.
Well, it's clarifying, right? Clarity is a huge gift, and
Yep.
it preserves resources. All right, well, let's jump in. I guess I should start by thanking you for coming on, for suggesting this conversation. I've hosted you. You're slowly climbing the ladders. Again, not that this matters to you, but to the most frequently appeared guest on the show. I've had you on for all these books. And, I actually want to scroll down on I've got a lot of questions for you, but it makes sense to ask this one because I'm talking about it. When the first time you came on the show, it was actually before The Others Within Us came out in 2023. And then you published When You're Going Through Hell, Keep Going in 2024. And then you released Opening the Inner World. You were a co-author there in 2025. And Spirit, I saw the published date. I was like, he should have waited until 2026. He already had a release in 2025, but you released Spirit in 2025. So you've come on for all these books, and they're all within the last 3 years. And I did a sneak peek towards the back, and it says you're planning on releasing a revised edition of your autobiography this year.
Yeah, probably in a month.
In a month. Yeah.
It's I got a proofreader, so that's out of my control.
Yeah.
Self Unbroken.
Say again?
Self Unbroken.
Oh, is that what it's going to be? Okay.
That'll be the title.
Self Unbroken. Yeah. Are you familiar with that book by Laura? I can't remember her last name. Unbroken, about the Louis Zamperini.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Oh, it's a good one. It's a good one.
And then we are probably going to have. We're planning another second volume of the Swedenborg IFS.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm working on another book, which will be a larger book along the size probably of The Others Within Us, on the necessity of spirit and healing.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah.
I'm excited to read that one.
There are a few more on the back burner.
Yeah, you've got some work to do before you shuffle off this mortal coil.
Yeah. And I'm old.
Well, you're only as old as you feel. Like, my father-in-law turned 80 last year, and he's one of the youngest spirits. You know what I mean? And I feel like that keeps him young. But the timeline is also, how much of that is in our control? I don't know. But it seems like you're in a prolific chapter of your life of releasing all these publications. And so should your fans expect a book to come out in 2027 as well? You said something on your YouTube channel that you're planning on releasing newer volumes of the raw, unedited dialogues. Any idea on a timeline of that?
Well, when I get the other two books that are in front of it done.
Fair enough. Fair enough. All right.
I hope to have, the Swedenborg book's out of my control because there's two co-authors. But I would hope to have that out in a year and a half. And the other book, I've got so many other projects going, I'm not making the big blocks of time I need to write.
Okay. Does that mean you're gonna have to sacrifice consulting, teaching, something?
Something.
It's not going to be your prayer morning routine.
No, and it's not going to be sleep.
It's not going to be sleep. No. It's interesting. Insight, we're going to get to the book, but I just free association here. Insight Timer, which is one of the very popular meditation apps, like Headspace and Calm. I'm a publisher there, and they release emails to publishers, and they say, you guys have been asking what does the market, what are their deficits in? And most of the users on Insight Timer are asking for resources and guided tracks to help with sleep. It's all sleep based. It's like trouble falling asleep, trouble staying asleep, nightmares, waking up too early. And I'm just like, that's where we heal, right? In rest. And it's a shame that there's apparently an epidemic of sleep problems in the self-help community. But anyway, I digress. Let's dive into the book, Bob. Thanks for coming on the show. You've talked about it many times, but I want to just, for the purposes of a potential standalone episode for new listeners, this book, Spirit, let me hold it up so people can see it, from Great Mystery Press. You mentioned how this book got started. The journey was your friend, your colleague, Kay Gardner, invited you to try out this practice. What it became with your, I'm wondering, how did it go from this invitation, you thought it was silly? How did it evolve from trying it once to now we're talking about this publication? Just walk us through that evolution, if you would.
Okay. Well, first, let's describe the practice. It actually comes from Ira Progoff, who wrote a lot about journals and journaling and writing as part of healing. And basically, the practice is you just sit down with a sheet of paper and a pen, and you write your name, and then you align a question. And then you write whatever you call spirit, and you write an answer. And you just keep doing that for, my initial time was 10 minutes without stopping. Don't let the pen stop. Keep it moving, no matter what comes out. And I thought this sounded brain dead. But I respect Kay a lot and love her. It was in a workshop environment. So I did it. And the very first time, I was stunned. Some answers came out that were obviously wiser than I am. There were answers to questions I didn't know the answer to. And the answers seemed of value, if not 100%, magnificent, but they definitely knew more than I did. And that was like, whoa, so easy. And I'm in touch with some layer of wisdom inside myself that's bigger than what I can be in touch with normally. So I started doing it really regularly. And then I have a long morning practice of inner work. And I started adding this as a part of the practice. And now I probably do it for 30 minutes to an hour every day. And I've done it for more than a decade. And it continued to get deeper. The more seriously I took it and the more regular I was, the more stuff came through that was clearly wiser than I am. Which was, it's like, this shouldn't be, this doesn't fit, but it's happening. There was a great guy, I think it was Sir William Coates, who was an early researcher into parapsychology, and he presented something to an audience, and somebody in the audience stood up and said, "That's impossible, that's impossible." And Coates said, "I didn't say it was possible, I just said it happened."
I love it. I love that.
Yeah, and that's what it's been like for me. And because it continues to be rewarding and opening, I keep doing it.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm curious. Okay, so you sort of answered the first part of that question regarding the evolution, but if I could jump in and just ask, so did it gain traction right away?
Pretty much, because I was so stunned that something so brain dead simple could access a level of wisdom in me. I thought you had to spend years on some freezing mountainside or something. And I know, from the IFS framework self, we can access that. There's this greater wisdom, but usually that requires a paid therapist and many sessions. And here was this thing I could do, sitting in a warm, comfortable chair on my own. And it has not replaced therapy or other ways of doing inner work, but it's definitely been an important new avenue for me.
Mm.
And over the more than a decade I've been doing this, there's over 3,000 pages, probably 4,000 pages of journals now. And that book, Spirit, I tried to summarize the first 3,000 pages. And what I hope to do, a colleague, actually, she's a Roman Catholic spiritual director. She said, so many people can't even ask Spirit a question. You really need to put the whole dialogues in there so they can get the dialogical back and forth nature of this process. So I thought, okay, I'll do that with some of the journals that have come up since then.
Mm-hmm.
That project is probably number 3 in the queue right now.
Yeah. Yeah. How long, let me ask this question relative, because you tried this, your exposure to it, you said Kay Gardner invited you to try it, but how, because I'm wondering, the question is about the skeptic, right? We're gonna speak directly to the skeptics in the audience. But what I'm meandering around is, if you were invited to try this 15 years prior to when you were actually invited to try it, it's like, I don't know that you can answer that question necessarily, but I'm curious, like, what was your relationship like with your skeptic? How did your skeptic show up after it became clear to you, there's a there, this is real? Like, what was that like? Or had your relationship already been cultivated where your skeptic had already been like, yeah, I've seen some wild stuff and this is just another one of those wild things?
Yep. Yeah. First of all, if it happened 15 years earlier, it would have depended very much on who asked me.
Mm-hmm.
There were some people I had profound respect for. And if they said you will be able to access wisdom by, almost any, I would have tried it if it wasn't, life-threatening or ridiculously expensive. So that I can answer clearly. My skeptic, I've worked with my skeptic a lot. He can be very harsh. And I hope I don't think I ever let him out in sessions anymore with people, because he's pretty brutal.
Mm.
Or he had, but he's very open to experiment.
Yeah.
That appeals to him. And he very much knows that most of what academia says and most of what the party line is or the general belief is, he knows that's all bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
And he loves shining his light on bullshit, including my own, which can be less than comfortable. But I think I'm the skeptical part of me is so intense about this exposing bullshit thing. It's almost to an addiction level.
Mm.
I have this radar for bullshit, and I just
well, that feels important. That feels important because bullshit harms people. But bullshit and my efficiency complex, it's like it's a horrible waste of time to be eating bullshit for a long time when you could have been eating something good, Yeah.
Well, and my father sexually abused me. He was a sadist, child molester, total creep. But he was a deacon and trustee of a major Presbyterian church.
Yeah.
He'd be up in front of the congregation, handling the collection plates out, and Mr. Falconer. And they were all sympathetic with him because he had this problem son, me.
Mm.
So, boy, does that set you up to want to expose bullshit.
Yeah. Yeah. It's wild to visualize all that. Yeah. So I can feel even a different track. Of course, I have my podcast manager part have all these bullet points, and I will hold them loosely. I will not cling to them so tight. But because we're talking about the skeptic, I could just see this shiny object pulling me this way, and I want to resist it for a moment and come back to the skeptic. So I'm abiding in this manager part, this podcaster part. But can you speak to the skeptics in our audience and directly to the materialists? How would you describe this book to someone who's completely unfamiliar with spirit dialogue and thinks it's a bunch of bullshit?
Yeah. Welcome. I'm so glad you skeptical parts are here. Skeptical parts typically are very intelligent and have a lot of clarity. When we're exploring the antipodes of the mind, we need clarity and intelligence because it's so easy. There's so much bullshit. I mean, huge mounds of it. So we need those qualities. But I think in terms of this kind of stuff, we're very early on in the exploration. We're like the first explorers or Europeans to go to other continents. The naturalists just noticed what was there, and they made precise records and started doing that. That's what we're at. So it's a time for data collection. It's too soon for analysis. It's too soon for evaluation. Every scientist knows that if you start the evaluation too soon, the evaluation is faulty and it messes up the data collection. We are in data collection here, gang. And I really would like the skeptical parts to come help with data collection.
Can I advocate for them for a second? The devil's advocate for the skeptic. What if the listener says, hang on, Bob. No, the data's been collected, and this is categorically put in this is fantasy. You know, you're making it up. It's all just a part of your own ego. Like that, we've collected the data, and the jury's out, or the jury's in.
Yeah. Well, William James said a long time ago that the greatest block to scientific progress is the belief that something's impossible.
Yeah. How about, it's Olympic season right now, Winter Olympics. How about the people that think things are impossible, and then you see year after year, no one pulled it off. And then once they pulled it off, it's like, okay, now because humanity believes it's possible, now they can continue to set world records.
Yeah. So that's one thing. The other thing is many, quote, skeptics, they're not skeptics at all. They're rabid fundamentalists. Rabid. They will not look at new data at all. There was this famous case of, what is that group called? PsyCop or something. It's an official skeptical place. They hired this guy to study athletes and their birth dates with computers, because theoretically astrology would say there should be a correlation here between great athletes and their birth signs. The guy they hired said, yeah, damn, there is a correlation. They fired the guy and hired somebody else to debunk him.
Well, that's not very that's not integrity.
But they claim to be skeptical. Many people are not skeptical. They're some of the worst fundamentalists come in the name of materialism.
Well, I would just jump in and say that whatever beliefs have hooked them to a critical mass, and that it's very, very hard to unhook them and to truly be open. Because that's in your book. I mean, there's so many times that spirit reminds you in very humorous ways, open. And by the way, I should say, you were a direct practitioner with me in the IFS model. My first retrieval of an exile was this 8-year-old boy, and one of the qualities that he brought back in along with forgiveness was openness. And that is so immensely valuable, because it is the difference between what we're calling skepticism or skeptics and saying, yeah, you can hold this and say, that's unbelievable. I don't want to believe that's true. What would it mean if that were true? All that stuff, and just be open and see what happens. I understand the fear there. The fear is, I'll fall into a pit. I'll be humiliated. I'll be exploited. All sorts of terrible things that are afraid. But it's been such a gift the openness has led to so, it's like Shangri-La. I don't know. It's like, it leads to a lot. It leads to a lot.
Yeah. And I would say that this belief in materialism, physicalism, is dying, because there's so many places where it just can't account for the data. And, Max Planck said about physics quite a while ago, when quantum physics was coming in, he said, physics will proceed funeral by funeral.
Mm-hmm.
Some people are so devoted and so committed to their worldview that they're just not going to let it go. I think materialism is in that kind of end stage place. And if you start opening up to the possibility of hearts and unattached burdens and guides and talking to voices that actually mean something, that terrifies people.
Mm-hmm.
It means their whole basic way of conceiving of the world is wrong, or is too small. It might cover part of the world, but it ain't covering the whole banana. It's like, that's terrifying.
Yeah.
So instead of dealing with the data or making experiments, they just attack in any way possible the people who are pointing that out.
Yeah. Yeah. Let me come back. I appreciate what you're naming, and I want to come back to this phrase "doing the dishes" made it to my notes here. Did dialoguing with spirit ever feel like, you've talked in the past about that shift when checking with your parts goes from being like a chore to actually being a delight, and it's terrible when something happens and you don't get an opportunity to check in. Was it ever like that with dialoguing with spirit?
Not as much.
Okay.
The was early on for me in terms of spending a lot of time in the inner world, because our culture discounts that as meaningless or valueless. And I think that's exactly backwards. Everything that matters in our life comes from our inner world. Our values, who we love, all of this. And you can make a very strong case that the world we perceive is determined by our value system. And I could lay that out in terms of predictive coding, if you want. There's a neurological case that shows this is true. So pretty much our whole psychological well-being is determined by our inner world, our life satisfaction, all of that. And we've been trained to ignore it. Oh, that stuff doesn't matter. Don't waste your time. Get out here with get down to brass tacks, all that kind. Let's go. But once I had made that basic turn and come to realize that, contrary to what our culture maintains, this inner world is immensely valuable and can change the way you live and how much you enjoy your life and how satisfied you are. That was the place where it shifted from being a chore, like washing the dishes or brushing your teeth, to being something that was really joyful and generative in general.
Yeah.
And I think now, in my late 70s, I'm more creative and joy-filled than I've ever been in my life.
Yeah.
So
that's great. What's coming up for me is there's something. Well, there's two associations. One is I think it's from Matthew in the Bible, the like storing your treasures up in heaven versus here. It's spirit reminds you there's some wherever it is in the book that says spirit says to you something like, we don't really care much about your reputation or your wealth or anything. It's like your soul. That's what matters, and that's exactly what you're speaking to. And cultivating that. And it's amazing what's hidden in plain sight. You say your perception is based on value, your values kind of determine your perception. But yeah, it's amazing what hides in plain sight.
Because people, that'll just go by people.
Say again.
Let me lay that out a little bit.
Yeah.
Predictive coding or predictive processing is a prominent, widely accepted theory of perception. It basically says there's raw data down here, way too much. There's no way you can let all that in. It would be just a buzz of total overwhelming confusion, perhaps like the first rush of a powerful psychedelic trip. But that's another issue. And then as that data goes up toward consciousness, there are all these filters. Now, those filters come top down, and those filters are based on what we determine is of value for us to know. Our value structure. So our values usually create these filters. Everything beneath maybe the first filter is unconscious. We are completely unaware of this process. Some of the models I've seen have 6 filters, some have like 12, but there are all these different layers of filtering. And the tiny little bit that finally gets up into your consciousness has been strained through all these levels of what you think is valuable. Mm-hmm. You are not seeing some ultimate reality out there. You're seeing what your value system wants you to know. And this all of a sudden, oh, it's really important what I value.
Yeah. Well, let me speak. I appreciate you breaking it down that way, and I want to offer something that maybe concrete that people can relate to, which is like if you've ever been in the marketers know this. If you've ever been in the market for something where you're like, I get advertised all the time about whatever X product or X service, and I don't want it. I don't need it. So I don't pay attention to it until I need it and want it. And then suddenly it's like, oh, I'm starting to notice that, right? It comes into perception because it's now valuable to you. It's just maybe I'm only speaking to one layer of what you were pointing to. Yep. Okay, so let's come back here. I meant to ask you when there was sort of an evolution question that I asked earlier on, and there was a second part of that I may have cut you off from. When did this idea come? You were dialoguing and having volumes before the idea. Like, when did the idea to put it into a publication and release it? When was that idea birthed?
Spirit told me.
But my question is when?
Oh, I don't know. Just a few years ago.
Okay. So
Spirit actually said, I was not writing this with any thought of it ever being published.
Right.
And Spirit actually said, it's not going to sell a lot of books, but it'll touch a few people very deeply, and that's what matters. That's why you're doing this.
Yeah.
Because this book might be able to touch a few people's hearts very deeply.
I deeply resonate with that. So you had been doing the dialogues for years before Spirit directly said, take our invitation.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Once you knew these messages would be put into a book, what was your process like of deciding what to synthesize? Because like you said earlier, the book is not, you offer one direct example just so readers can get a sense of what is the raw data like when dialogue, or what it can look like. Mm-hmm. But once you knew it was going to be published, what was your process like of synthesizing what to exclude from the original dialogue?
I tried to let Spirit decide.
Naturally.
Yeah. I mean, Spirit's telling me to do this. I'm listening. Hey, what am I supposed to do? Now I want to say something else. This whole idea. Here's this old fart Bob out there on his mountainside in California, and he listens to voices. Now, not long ago, that would have got him locked up. But it's even worse than that. He talks to the voices. Mm-hmm. He bases major life decisions on them. This guy's certifiably insane.
to a perspective.
Yeah, but I just want to say, Socrates heard voices his whole life, and that's the origin of Western philosophy. And I think it's magnificently ironic that the origin of Western rationalism comes from a man who heard voices and based his major life decisions on them his whole life.
Yeah.
And many, there's a whole movement called the Hearing Voices movement of people who they consider themselves recovering from the mental health treatments. Mm-hmm. And they just encourage, a lot of people hear voices, and they just encourage people to start dialoguing with the voices instead of trying to drug them out of the voices. Or what psychiatrists often say, don't pay any attention to those. And you can even get fired from many jobs and even lose your license if you encourage people to dialogue with the voices they hear. They'll say, you're colluding with their illness, you're making them worse, you're fired.
That's right.
That is still happening.
Yeah.
That's terrible. So let's see what else. Oh, one more thing about hearing voices. What the psychiatric establishment has been saying is that this is psychopathology. It's not. It's normative human behavior. And I think one of the great examples of this is there was this big study of people who had been married 45 years or more, and one dies. 80% of the surviving spouses hear the voice of the deceased spouse. That's not pathology.
No.
It's normative.
Yeah.
Come on, gang. I know it's uncomfortable. I know it doesn't fit your ideology, but take the blinders off for a few minutes. It's a nice world out here.
Yeah. That is a perfect counterpoint. It really is. You said how long were the couples? They're married for 45 years, or
Yeah.
and 85%.
80.
Yeah.
Have to fact check me, Robin.
No, I appreciate you offering that stat. So let me come back here. You combed through these dialogues. Okay, Spirit was your co-editor. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
As you were doing it.
Wait a minute. Spirit did the job. I was more like a secretary.
You were the secretary. Got it.
More like that.
Okay, well, let's get the hierarchy correct here.
Yeah.
Okay, so, and you might, maybe it's impossible to know this, but I wanted to ask, as you were coming through all of these, you were refining the book, did anything stand out to you that surprised you the most when you read over these years of dialogue?
I think maybe the first thing is how much humor there is.
Yeah.
A lot of it is hilarious. So the other thing is, I don't look so good. I'm not this big hero or wise man. It's, one image that comes to me a lot is all you people down there on the planet, you're in preschool.
Yeah.
Most of you are still wearing diapers, and most of the time your diapers are loaded and they don't smell so good.
Yeah.
And here I am. I always wanted to be the expert. It's like, no.
Yeah. Well, but it's commendable to put your humanity out there. Maybe it might be harder to do that, if you know that it's going to be read by millions and millions of people. And that's kind of how I think about my podcast. I'm like, there's a corollary here of putting one's unfiltered humanity out there, but you're like, this is in some small pocket of the internet. I'm not gonna. It's easier when you're obscure, but just knowing that it can touch some people really deeply is profoundly meaningful. And I just want to name that it's commendable for you when you look back and you're like, it doesn't make you look so good, but you're honest, and I think that's why it's valuable, because a lot of people's parts of their ego complex would never let them in a million years share that, And to your point, I want to pick up on the humor part. That's exactly right. There's something about, it's like humor. I don't know. Wisdom inherently has humor inside of it, but there's this combination of like someone that has a lot of wisdom and a lot of playful spirit. That is so. It's never offensive. I don't like. Was there any ever time that Spirit said something that offended you?
No.
Yeah.
No. A lot of times I sort of go, "Oh, Bob," but it was always with kindness.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm also thinking about the nature of being able to laugh at oneself, and that being kind of an indicator when someone can't laugh at themselves. I've got a lot of compassion. It's like that means that there's something that hurts.
There's a problem here. Yeah.
Yeah. It hurts. It's too painful. Whereas someone who can laugh at themselves, there's no wound there. That's why they can laugh at themselves.
Yeah. And, I have a 12-year-old part who's very active and I immensely enjoy. one of the things Spirit did is sometimes I'd be praying and starting to get like, oh, I'm kind of sacred or holy here. And what Spirit would always do is make me fart loudly. And it's hard to get real pompous about how sacred you are when you're tooting.
That's right.
and then I had this less than charitable thought, which is definitely for me, not Spirit. Hey, this would improve a lot of church services if this happened to the ministers.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Is that's the 12-year-old?
That's a 12-year-old. That is not Spirit.
Yeah, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another thing I want to say about, this, because this metaphor of, all of you on your planet are still in diapers, you're in preschool.
Mm-hmm.
It sort of said, well, when you get into maybe first grade, you'll be able to understand the language of the birds, and they'll come and land on your shoulder. And the wild deer will come up and nuzzle your hand. And you will be able to speak with the voice of the wind as it goes through the trees. So that's first grade. So
are there reports of Saint Francis of Assisi ever having that?
He talked to a wolf that was terrorizing a town. Yeah, and the Sufis talk a lot about birds, bird song as being the voice of God, and some of them could understand the song of the birds. So there are reports of this occasionally, little bits of it coming through.
Yeah, well, because I'm thinking more not so much of the telepathy with animals, but the animals trusting an otherwise untrustworthy human predator. Where I've heard someone say they're standing in the ocean, and the fish they are radiating with self energy, and the fish are not scared of their feet, and they're kind of like showing up like a what's that word, like mandala or something. The fish are just organized and they're right there. Or my wife is an artist, I'll quote her, she knows when she's out in nature painting for long enough, the animals are like, yeah, you're not a problem. Like there's something going on. And so I don't think the birds land on her like some Disney princess, but
I've had some experiences like that, but it isn't the way I live. Let's put it that way.
Okay. Are you care to elaborate on those experiences?
It's okay. It's
maybe for another conversation. Okay. This idea of Earth being a school with grades and stuff, I really appreciate I don't know that this is necessarily referenced in your book, because again, I haven't read all of it yet, but I really appreciate the perspective that Earth is a school, and what happens when you don't pass a test, you retake the lesson. And, there's no shame in you have to take this lesson over and over and over again, but just
let me say something about that, Robin.
Yeah, please do.
Is so problematical.
Say again?
Test. The word test is a problem.
Okay.
We interpret tests as pass, fail. That's not I don't think that's what they are in a spiritual way. They're more like a diagnostic test at the doctor. It shows you what procedures you need or what kind of work you need to do or something like that. It's not a matter of pass, fail.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to say something else, because all these people get really snooty about how spiritually evolved they are and blah-de-blah and blah, blah, blah. I think one of the sayings I really love is that the greatest Buddhas often choose to go and live in the worst hell realms. So just because somebody is living in a dumpster and shooting heroin every day doesn't mean that that you can turn up your nose at them and that you are fundamentally any better than them at all. That might be a great Buddha spirit living in that dumpster intentionally.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what, to pick up on the text, there's Spirit has said that to you, probably on more than one occasion, using that as a reference and saying, don't think you're higher than, the people that ordinary citizens would look down upon are way more advanced than you are, spiritually.
Yeah, sometimes, very much.
Right. So for someone who's inspired to give this a try, if they're this deep into our conversation and they're like, all right, Bob said, anyone can do it. you're a teacher, Bob, so let's put your teacher hat on and invite people to give what kind of guidance would you tell people to how to do this?
Take 10 minutes, get your kitchen timer out, sheet of paper and a pen. If you can't write cursive, I guess you could use a computer keyboard, but I think it's really better with a pen, but I'm old, so what the hell do I know about you young ones? When you do this, no censoring. None. No censoring. Whatever comes out. And just have a question you want an answer to, and hopefully a real one. And if you're in a group of people, that's fine. That can help. And then, but these things are private often.
When you say when you're in a group, you mean like everyone in the group is doing the same exercise?
Yeah.
Not just like in a library. Okay. All right.
Yeah. Very often people do that and share what they've written afterwards. Or if they don't want to share what they've written, what was this like for you? You know, and some people, they start doing this, they just get 4-letter words for a page or two, and then maybe one sentence comes through. That's fine. But absolutely no censoring.
Right. Don't censor those 4-letter words if that's you, if that's coming through.
Coming through, that's it.
Right.
And don't let your pen stop. Keep moving, keep stuff coming. And some people have trouble coming up with questions. That's hard for me to relate to. But, you know, most people have a whole bunch of questions they can't answer, they'd like some help with.
Well, and if the rule is don't let the pencil or pen stop and they don't have questions, they're welcome to write, I don't have anything to ask you.
Yeah.
Right. They just write that.
Yeah. Or what the hell can you tell me?
Right.
You know,
right.
You think so great.
Right. I suspect that's allowing the part who didn't necessarily, like, if someone's trying to do this, maybe they have parts that like, I don't buy this. I don't want to do this. I'd rather do this other thing, but here we are sitting down. You want to do this. And so then that part is coming through the pen.
Yeah. Yeah. I think this is a very important point, large in a bigger realm, because I'm coming to believe that we don't heal from any kind of major trauma unless we access something larger than ourselves. You know, AA, higher power kind of stuff. If people are angry at that, and most people who are abused are, I invite them to take their anger directly to that higher power or to the traditional God of their religion or whatever it is, and take it and put it right in the face of that God. And if that God or spirit or whatever it is can't handle your anger and rage and hatred, it's not big enough for you.
And what if they're too scared to do that?
That would be another thing to work with.
Yeah.
That would be classical IFS work. I think the most important thing in welcoming in spirit and higher power is finding all the parts of us who are scared of it and don't want to do it. And, oh, I'm not going to express that anger to anybody, all that kind of stuff, and working with them in a loving way. We're not going to steamroller past these guys. We're not, none of that.
Right.
We want to find everybody who's uncomfortable doing this and get to know them until they are comfortable. Because
That's exactly why I asked that question, Bob, is to elicit your response, which is to say, if they are afraid, that's just more of what needs love and attention and witnessing.
Yeah. Or the question to ask would be, I'm afraid to ask you a question.
Yeah, exactly. Honest.
Yeah, whatever's there.
Yeah. There's there's something in the towards the back of the book. I was like, well, if I'm having Bob, can't read this whole book, because again, I think did you specifically guide people, don't take it 1 page or 2 pages a day or what?
I have said to many people, this is not meant to be read straight through.
Don't read it straight through. Exactly.
Yeah. Hopefully, you'll flip through here, find a few pages, and some passage will catch your attention. and just sit with that and see if it can make a difference in how you can live.
Yes. Well, let me speak to that exactly. Okay. I'm going to get back to, I'm going to bookmark. I wanted to tell you about something at the end of the book, but very early in the book, I was reading it, and it must have been, January 2nd or something, New Year's. And I mentioned Insight Timer before, and on Insight Timer, they prompt you. It's like, do you want a New Year's resolution? Well, I had just read in your book, Spirit saying a really good question to ask yourself many times a day, Bob, is this loving? And I said, oh, that's such gold. Because I was just like, oh yeah, that's the meditation. That's the prayer 5 times a day. Constantly, is this loving? What a great barometer. Because if it's not, you're coming from a burden. You're coming from a place that's, causing harm. And anyway, I could expand upon that, but I wanted to thank you for including that in here, because that was, and putting it early on too. That is such a great.
I didn't choose the order, Robin.
Okay, fair enough. All right. Thanks to Spirit. Thanks to
the way Spirit talked to me.
Yes. Well, then the other thing I wanted to name was, so I was like, oh, if I'm having Bob on, I was like, I'm not going to get through this whole book, but let me just skip to the end. And so there's a part thinking oh, the good stuff's in the back kind of thing. Right. But so I go to the back, and there's something, it's so great. Let me see if maybe if I did dog ear it. It says something like, oh, maybe I can't find it. It's something about fear and terror. And it's like you should go towards the fear. If you want to find real peace, go directly to the heart of terror. That's where you will find it. And to that wisdom and that humor, it's a pretty good hiding space, isn't it? I love that. It's because I've heard other quotes of everything meaningful in life is on the other side of fear. Or Jordan Peterson cites King Arthur's Knights of the Round Table, and it's enter the woods where they appear darkest to you. If Sir Galahad says, that's where it's darkest, I'm going to go over there, and Lancelot says, it doesn't look dark over there, it's well, you're not Sir Galahad. You need to go where it's darkest to you. That's the invitation, is what are you afraid of, and go directly towards it.
Yeah, and that's where you'll find peace.
Yeah.
A little bit counterintuitive.
Say again? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Very counterintuitive. Absolutely. So I'm going to piggyback on my question about you being a teacher and guiding people. Really appreciate that for people who want to give this a try. But also, what guidance can you give people? And I know you've spoken about it on this show and many other platforms before. What guidance can you provide to help folks discern between the voice of Spirit and their own internal thoughts or their parts speaking to them?
Okay. And don't trust not every spirit, it says somewhere in the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
There are, as IFS calls them, unattached burdens or negative spirits. And I think they predominate, actually. I actually think they run most of the governments. They run most of the churches, academic institutions. They're all over the place. So, yeah, we live in a couple tornadoes of bullshit, lies, hatred, all of that. There's so much of that there's hardly any room for the still, quiet voice of love. So this is a huge issue. How do you know what's what? And number one, you've already mentioned, fear. If contact with this voice pokes at your fear, finds something you're afraid of, and then makes you more afraid and uses that to manipulate you, really bad sign. Not good. My experience of benevolent spirit, it's always compassionate. It's always loving. It's always kind. Kind is another word. The Dalai Lama said, my religion is kindness. You can find that in every tradition, pretty much. The only real standard of discernment is by their fruits you shall know them. In other words, can you live better in the days, weeks, months, and years ahead? But that only works in hindsight. So we need to develop real-time stuff. Another one is, does this experience or having this dialogue make you feel superior to other people? one up. That is poison. And that is, many, many religions offer that. We're the saved. Those other idiots don't know shit. Well, I think that's poison. And that's the way the wonderful deep messages of spirit get tweaked just enough so that they become poisonous. Another one is, I imagine a gauge on a dashboard. At one end of the gauge is gratitude, and the other end is resentment. What does this voice do to your gauge? Are you feeling more gratitude or more resentment? That you can very often feel almost instantly.
Mm.
Another one for me, and this one might be quite personal for me. Anytime I start feeling self-righteous, I'm in trouble. I think I have an addiction issue here, because I've been so into exposing bullshit. And there's the self-righteous crusader kind of energy.
Mm-hmm.
Poison. Take something fundamentally beautiful, spiritual, and valuable, misdirects it just enough so that it becomes toxic. I think we need more real-time tools of discernment. And I have a bunch of other ideas, but I think these I've offered are the biggest and most user-friendly ones.
Yeah, really, really appreciate you encapsulating that in a short amount of time, and for people to begin to use them right away. Solid and clear. And obviously piqued my curiosity about the others, but we'll save that for later. How would you say your dialogues with spirit influenced your development as a teacher?
A lot.
Or as a therapist?
Both. A lot. I think the dialogues with spirit sort of orient me towards a basic worldview or way of being in the world would be better, because it's not a theoretical thing at all. It's just a way of being in the world, sort of who I am. And coming to live from a place where I know I am connected to vast energies. And that now when I'm doing therapy, there's an image from the Northern Plains, Native Americans, that a medicine man becomes a hollow bone that spirit can go through. So I'm working really hard on being a hollow bone that the winds of spirit can blow through. I want to say one more thing, because one of the northern indigenous tribes is this guy Eduardo Duran, who's a psychologist, and he works a lot with native healing and trying to square that with Western psychotherapy, which he says is actually a sophisticated form of colonialism.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, I believe humor is necessary in the therapy room. Therapy without humor is a big mistake. And then he smiled and said, I have been given the great gift of saying some really stupid shit.
I love it.
And this guy's a PhD with, I don't know, half a dozen books out or more. And
yeah. But see, again, that illustrates the lighthearted, playful nature, the wisdom of experience, and being able to make fun of yourself. That, no ego. And that's like another thing of, not that the ego is bad, but that the ego is emptied so that spirit can flow through.
Yeah, getting out of the way.
Yeah.
I think, and this brings up the subject of kenosis, which basically means moving stuff aside. And, in IFS, we say self is always here. And the way we get more of it, so we just help stuff unblend and let it shine forth. Same thing spiritually. The way to profound and daily, I believe, ongoing connection with something larger than who we are is by finding all the parts of us who are not ready for this and welcoming them with love. That's kenosis. It's also known as apophaticism. I love big pompous words. But that started out as the idea of, how can you possibly define God? Well, you can't say anything about him directly. It's too big. but you can say what he's not.
Mhm.
And that's the idea of apophaticism.
Well, and I want to pick up on this, that Spirit, it was a page that I read 30 minutes before jumping on the call with you. There was, Spirit said something like, don't get angry at the blocks, right? Like,
Yeah,
right. Like,
they're the gift. They're the way to our becoming better therapists, better whatever we do.
but I can understand and appreciate a listener who's hearing what you're saying and being like, oh, got it. Move them out of the way. It's like,
No, not like that. It's
Right.
love them.
Right.
Welcome them in with love.
Exactly. That's so important. I'm saying it so that I also get that reminder. Like,
Yeah. If we shove them out of the way, we dig a deeper hole.
yeah. How about outside of your work as a teacher or a therapist? How has your writing and dialogues with Spirit changed you personally?
It's pervasive. It's changed who I am. So I don't think there's any area of my life, and some rather humorous thoughts came up that I don't think I'll mention publicly.
Fair enough. Okay, fair enough. Fair enough.
Changed. So
Okay.
there is something that keeps coming up to me that I want to discuss.
Okay.
I think there is, or one way to view all spiritual practices, all attempts to come into contact with something deeper within us, we can imagine a continuum. And at one end of this continuum, we'll put total passivity, surrender, receptivity. In Western spirituality, this was called quietism. And Madame Guyon in France and Father Molinas in Italy, they were radical quietists. They said, if you just open your soul to the divine, it will flood into you. You're a plowed field. You welcome that. And they even said things like, if you are really able to do this, you will no longer need the church or sacraments. Father Molinas was executed by the Inquisition. Madame Guyon spent many years in prison, but they finally released her. But this kind of idea obviously is unpopular with domination structures. So that's one extreme end over here, surrender kind of spirituality. At the other end, they're extremely highly structured version. Reading written prayers is an example, but that's only a mild example. A really strong example, I think, would be deity yoga. These are practices in Hinduism and Buddhism. One that I've worked with is the Blue Medicine Buddha. Mm-hmm. You visualize the Blue Medicine Buddha in incredible detail with all these different halos and gods and goddesses all over here and there. And I mean, it's an immense effort of mental discipline. Then you invite that being down inside you. You do some work in that case and then in that condition, and then you send that Blue Medicine Buddha back. Totally structured. And it also can be incredibly powerful and transformative to people. So the area I don't think has been explored enough is this vast intermediate realm. People tend to go to extremes. Not that I'm telling anything you didn't know, but there's this whole middle realm. And this is where the practice I'm doing, this kind of dialogue, lies. Now, way over here near the quietism end, there's stuff like channeling or full-on possession states. Very often when people are in full-on possession states, they call it somnambulistic trance. They don't remember anything that happened. A lot of channelers don't know what they did. They don't, well, what did I say? What did they, that's very far over there, okay? There's a whole middle realm where we're having dialogues. We're interacting with the spirit realm. And Carl Jung at one point said there are three kinds of imagination. Fantasy, which is wish fulfillment and trivial. Then there's passive imagination. And he said the classical example of this is dreams. We're not creating those dreams. They're given to us. We are a passive receiver. And then he said The other great example of passive imagination is psychosis. So this imagination stuff is not trivial. It determines whether you can stay oriented to the world. So this is significant. And then he said, in addition to passive imagination, this is what he called active imagination, which is what he did in the Red Book. And he also used this with many of his clients. And it's basically this sort of dialogical interaction. In the Red Book, he formed deep personal relationships with Philemon, Elijah, Salome, and quite a few other beings. And it was dialogical, question and answer, response, all this kind of relational stuff. And, there are quite a few people these days writing about what they call relational spirituality. And I think this is very much the realm where my stuff fits.
Mm-hmm.
All of IFS fits here because it's all about forming relationships with our parts.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say this also really resonates with the indigenous North American worldview. They talk about all my relations. And that means the mountain, the rocks, the trees, the birds, not just other humans.
Animism, right.
Animism, yeah. So basically, I'm an animist.
Yeah. I've been saying that to my wife, Kelly. I'm like, the animists were right. Like, again, I'm self-conscious about claiming that anyone's right or wrong, but just it's accessible. It's accessible to, there was a decluttering book. Maybe people know the Marie Kondo KonMari method, where she's helps people declutter, clean their closets. And it's like when you get rid of something, it's like you take the old underwear or whatever and you thank it. You thank it before you discard it, right? She treats it all with respect, with personhood. And it's her work seems to me like she's an animist, or she's having that relational stance.
Okay, let me come back to animism. It's real important.
Yeah.
There's a website or a podcast called The Emerald.
Yeah.
The guy's basically an animist, and he's very poetic and forceful. I don't agree with everything he says, but I don't agree with everything anybody says, basically. But let me tell you something. I think this is very important. It's a little bit nerdy, but
Okay.
I really like it. There's a guy named David Gordon White, who's one of the great Sanskrit scholars. No, this is not that White. This is
okay. Different White. David Gordon White. Right. Okay.
And he also speaks a lot of other impossible languages. And he studied the worship of genus loci, gods of the place, in India, Central Asia, ancient Near East, ancient classical world, and Europe. And he said the structure of how the names are all different, but the structure of how people related to the gods of their locality is the same. Same kind of and it's relational. It's this animistic relational thing to the locality. Mm. And then he said this seems to be an underlying ocean of human spirituality. And then he was in conversation with Charles Stang of the Harvard Divinity School on a YouTube thing. And I don't remember which one came up with this idea, but I think it's astoundingly brilliant. Well, maybe all the major religions are just waves on this underlying ocean of human relational spirituality.
Not hard for me to grok that.
Yeah. The way they said that, it's really clear, I think.
Yeah. I
think everyone I've ever met is capable of forming this kind of personal relationship with spirit or I don't care what they call it. I've worked all over the world, and in Pakistan they talk about jinn and Sufi saints. That doesn't hardly matter.
Bob, you mentioned somnambulistic states of trance earlier. Have you ever trained in hypnotherapy?
Yes, a lot.
A lot. Okay. I feel like maybe not in today's conversation, but I feel like that's a completely untapped, unscratched topic area. I just think that there's a lot there. And maybe I'll just say this, since I've invoked it for our purposes of our conversation. I know that people who train in hypnotherapy can take people into different levels of trance, and that sometimes hypnotherapists go to that somnambulistic trance state accidentally or whatever. They get freaked out. They don't want to touch it. They don't want to go there. But I find that that's where the most interesting stuff happens.
Well, not necessarily. You know, the classical distinction was spirit possession or channeling stuff was lucid versus somnambulistic. You know, lucid means you're aware of what's going on and can report it, and more interrelate. I don't think you can say one is better than the other in terms of the quality of data or experience it brings back.
Yeah, not saying better, just saying more interesting to me. Just speaking, just speaking for myself. And lucid would be where the IFS work falls, right? That trance state.
Most of the time, a lot of times, I don't know if you probably noticed this. If people don't make notes about their session right away, they'll forget it.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of like dreams also. Like the morning dew evaporates when the sun hits it long enough.
Right. And that turns the experience into a somnambulistic one. They don't know what the hell happened.
Yeah. And psychedelic experiences also, like well, some things are so palpable that I don't, they stick sometimes. You don't have to write them down.
Yeah, some things don't stick.
Yeah. Okay, I want to ask you this. There actually, for people who have this book and are listening to this conversation, I don't know that you talk about how you put in italics. Use of bold type indicates words that spirit wanted emphasized, and you used italics when Bob, or parts of Bob were speaking to spirit. But towards the back, you start to give, maybe you do it in the middle, but I only noticed it in the back. You start to give sort of paragraphs with a bar, and it says a vision, for example, like a vision, the vermin of hate. Can you help me understand what's the difference between your synthesis and the specific vision boundary?
Visions seem to be much less dialogical. It was much more like being shown a movie.
Okay.
Having a conversation with someone, but
I see.
And then a lot of times these were very disturbing. And so that's the difference.
Okay.
There's a wonderful line I like from the Bible, where there is no vision, the people perish.
Mm-hmm.
And I think by the way we treat people we call psychotic, or people who hear voices, we have effectively silenced all our visionaries. Now, much of the stuff they say is going to be completely off the wall, but also we need stuff that totally expands our worldview. The way we're going sucks. We're in an epidemic of mental illness. It's getting worse. Our care system has failed or is failing, depending on how generous you want to be. We need radically new stuff. And the way you get that is to invite the visionaries and listen to them. And some of these ideas are going to be just batshit crazy, and other ones will have great gems in there. But where there is no vision, the people perish. And we punish and silence our visionaries.
I'm holding that also with the people as parts. If the person's life has no vision, what becomes of their parts? I don't know how. That's how it's landing on me. I know you're talking about the societal level in our 3D world here, not in the inner world, but yeah, I'm familiar with that part of the Bible. And and the other thing that I associated to was when someone has wants to start a business, it's like, what's your vision? You need that, or you can try and skip that part. But it's
or writing a book.
Yeah.
Or having a podcast.
I was going to say, Bob, the people have perished on this podcast because my vision it's there, but it's like, when you go to the eye doctor and it's like, it's very blurry. It's blurry. The notion, the image is, back in Leonardo da Vinci's day or whatever, someone's trying to stitch together a hang glider while they're helplessly plummeting towards the earth. It's being knit as we speak.
And it should change, obviously, but yeah, we need visions.
Yeah. Have you ever disagreed with something Spirit said?
Oh, often.
Okay, what happened?
Doesn't usually go so well for me.
Well, and also the question is, who's disagreeing? Is it?
Yeah.
It's a part of Bob.
Yeah.
Right.
And it doesn't happen so much anymore.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of, oh, come on, or
is there an example that comes to mind?
I didn't like that idea of me wandering around with loaded diapers.
Mm-hmm. Okay, fair enough.
Nah. Yeah. But it also made me laugh. So hard to get angry when somebody's making you laugh.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
Something somebody else did who was interviewing me about this book is they just sort of went like that with the book and picked out a few passages at random.
Mm-hmm.
Or let Spirit decide what we'd talk about.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Well, that's not this show. No, I'm going to take that invitation because my podcaster part is looking. I'm slowly scrolling down my bullets so I don't ask duplicated questions, and I'm going to take your invitation, and we're going to do that right now. I'm going to read something. Actually, I'm going to take one of the dog-eared pages that I wanted to intentionally. They're all dog-eared. Let's go back here. Okay. I love this. I actually did plan on reading this, but I probably would have forgotten had you not prompted me. Okay. So just for context, this is, nope, I can't give context. It's after the cord spinners, the vision, the cord spinners. So Spirit chose to emphasize this. Spirit is saying to you, Bob, notice what dark monster is stirring in you. Notice, stay separate, observe. It is of your father's line. It is still in you, swimming in the depths. It came to the surface to try and bite and swallow you. Follow it down. Do not let it escape again. Redeem that one. It is not happy hiding in the muck on the sea bottom. It burrows there in the slime, lurching up to feed on the unsuspecting. Redeem him. And fair enough, you go, how? And I love this. This made me laugh out loud. Love. Oh, my son, have you learned nothing? Love, love, love. You know this. He wants to scare you into hate. Refuse that. Go with love. This is the full answer of God. Love is the sword, shield, and buckler. We love you. Let this flow through you. All else is secondary at best. Most of it is fake and toxic.
Do you think I want to love my father, knowing, and the monsters he left in me, knowing he raped and beat the shit out of me my whole childhood? That message was not exactly welcome.
Yeah. Yeah. There's something else that Spirit says. I can't remember. There's a quote where it's just like, love is it. All else is commentary. Everything else is commentary.
Yeah.
That's why that first part in the book is so powerful, because it's so simple. And we know just because something is simple does not make it easy. Is just ask it. Is it loving?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is this loving?
Mm-hmm. And I used to ask Spirit a lot. I still do sometimes. Your word for today. Because that was something the monks would ask each other when they'd see an elder monk. What can you give me a word? And he says, it's love, Bob. It's always love. It's always love.
It's always the same word.
Yeah.
Not like Sesame Street or Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood or Pee Wee Herman's Playhouse or whatever the children's show is that says, what's the word of the day? Always love. Yeah, or just like a different version of love. Compassion is a different word that also is love.
Yeah.
Forgiveness, different word, also love.
Mm-hmm.
When it's true of heart. Yeah. Okay, let me ask you, Bob. You've said how spirit never says things in a shaming or guilting way, even if you've behaved badly. Does an example spring to mind?
Oh, I don't behave badly. No, one doesn't right away. I mean, but often spirit is pointing out things I'm doing less than optimally.
Mm-hmm.
You
And
know?
it makes you laugh?
Most of the time,
Most
or like that thing about don't let that monster burrow into the seafloor again. Don't let him escape.
Yeah.
Do you think I want to go after the most hateful remnants of my father's spirit?
No, not a chance in hell. The majority of your parts want to do that, and yet that's the invitation. That's
Yeah.
the invitation that no one is exile. No one. Everyone is worthy of redemption. Kind of what you were saying. The greatest Buddhists go to the hell realms. It's not saying those hell realms are where we want to keep those ones. It's like no, they're all. And let me just interrupt myself by saying I'm holding the work of Dolores Cannon recently, and it's fresh in my mind. And it's like, those are, I know we already touched on pass, fail, and tests and stuff, but like those deeper hell realms, it's like those are the lessons that they're doing right now. And if you go down there, I think you said, now I'm going to quote directly from your book or paraphrase. It's like, if you go down there and invite them up, most of them are not going to come, but some of them will. Some of them will, and they can ascend. They can pass the test. they can move to the next lesson, or they get that diagnostic evaluation. Say, this is where you've been lacking. You've been lacking openness or forgiveness, or trust, or whatever it may be.
Yeah, and this is one reason why I'm sure that the whatever I'm accessing is not me. Because it's often telling me to do things I really don't want to do, you know.
Great heuristic, yes.
That's not me. Yeah, it's a great test. And also it's reminding me of things that just, you know, you're a preschooler, Bob. You know almost nothing.
Yeah.
But actually that's been an immense help in therapy, because I don't feel like I'm supposed to be the expert anymore in any way. And that helps me be really curious.
Yeah.
Most of the times now, when I work with people, I'm not just curious, I'm fascinated.
Riveted. Yeah.
Gripped, riveted, fascinated. Oh, this is so exciting. Experts don't get like that.
Yeah.
Experts have cut off that entire world.
Well, they can get like that. You can have experts who are seen as experts in their community or peers, and they embody the playfulness and the humility. No one comes to mind, but I want to be the devil's advocate on saying you can be an expert and have that open spirit of I don't know anything, and I'm there's a reason why I'm passionate about this work, and I'm 80 years old doing it, and I'll never retire. I'm thinking of my father-in-law.
Yeah, well, I'm almost 80. Yeah, but I don't think people like this would think of themselves as experts.
Yeah.
Or they wouldn't have that mindset.
Yeah. Well, and that also helps keep the practitioner just radically present.
Yeah.
Right. The experts kind of thinking, okay, I've heard this story a billion times. It's just this is the most recent iteration of it. Has the ships taken water on? And that'll be where we patch the holes in the ship, and that takes you out of being present.
Yeah, totally. And I can start cleaning my nails or checking my email or something while I'm doing this session.
Yeah. Dick, I think I know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask it anyway, because maybe I don't. I think you speak to it, but this is kind of a older question. Dick Schwartz says in one of the blurbs in your book in the beginning that you are dialoguing with a spirit guide in the singular. And when spirit is speaking in the dialogues, we read, quote, I and quote, we. Is it one guide or multiple guides? How do you think about multiplicity? Not when we're talking about parts, but when we're talking about these other ancestral, even non-human loving presences.
Multiplicity. All these people are trying to, monotheism and the non-dual people, it's all one. That might be true at some ultimate level. But down here in kindergarten, with our diapers on, We need to have a personal relationship. And, you know, the Catholic Church developed all these saints. Buddhist practice, which is fundamentally atheistic, has all these bodhisattvas and other beings to relate to. Hinduism has 33 million gods and only one. Or very much like, you know, I was David Gordon White and Charles Stang from Harvard. That's a relational practice, and there are hundreds of thousands or more spirits you can relate to. And I think the important thing is the relationship.
Yeah.
Rather than the name you put on.
But that's exactly what I wanted to say. Spirit said, you say it, you write it down. Spirit says it to you. It doesn't matter what you call us. It matters that you remember that we're here, that we're always with you. That's what matters.
Yeah, and we have an active, loving relationship that's heart-centered and powerful.
Right, and that you write about how, you know, you walk through, or maybe it's people walk through, and their spirits are right there. The angels are waving at them, and you miss them. You don't see them.
Yep. I think it was Brother David. One teacher I had said, you know, almost everyone has 20 or 30 mystical experiences every day, but we've been indoctrinated to ignore them all.
Mm-hmm. I've heard you say that many times, and since I heard you say that the first time, or quote him, I've been trying to be like, okay, yeah, was that one of them?
Let me suggest something for the skeptics. If there are any skeptics left with us after we've been wandering around.
Congratulations, you made it this deep into the conversation.
You're not that hardcore. For people who've never had an experience of anything like this, have you ever seen or heard something so beautiful that it brought tears to your eyes? That is this kind of experience. If you focus on that experience and recalling what that was like in your body and in your emotions, and, you know, bringing that back, that is a doorway to this kind of experience. And you can start to have a dialogue with that depth of experience. So, and I haven't met anyone yet who's claimed they never had an experience like that.
Yeah.
That we'll probably find your show will bring some up.
No. All right, I'm gonna stick on this identity component, this pronoun component. You also refer to spirit as male. I wondered if you might talk a little bit about the masculine and feminine in the spirit realm.
Okay, I also experience a female spirit presence, and it's very important to me. But she doesn't use words. She has maybe once or twice, and it was obviously very painful for her to use words. It was like she had to contract, lower, make herself smaller, and it was really unpleasant for her to get down into a level where she could talk with me through words. She usually communicates with me more like a gentle breeze, or the sound of the wind in the trees, or some distant melody, or just a sense of kindness and warmth and compassion. Nothing so crude as a word. Mm-hmm. So it would be great to write a book about her, but there wouldn't be any words in it.
That'd be a yeah, we need new technology to have that kind of a communication. Yeah, you're talking about, it's not even telepathy, right? It's something else. I don't know the word. I don't know the word. It's ineffable, I guess. But it's what you're talking about is receiving communication that doesn't require verbal communication. It's.
She obviously wanted to give that to me, and it was very painful for her. And I thought, we got this guy over here who's happy to talk, and I'm so grateful to have you appearing to me as a breeze, warmth.
That's beautiful. And she's not the same one who visited you, who you cursed and then didn't visit you, or she is?
I'm not sure.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. Yeah.
Let me tell that story for people.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, one of the things my father would do, because it always really freaked me out, was suffocate me unconscious. And he'd often do that while he was raping me. And sometimes in that unconscious state, I experienced a merciful female presence who was always sort of more like a cloud than a person, but somehow I knew she was female, and she was compassionate and merciful, and I just so loved her, compared to the life I was living. But she kept sending me back. And then I came to hate her, and I cursed her because she wouldn't let me go with her. And then I couldn't find her for decades. And I felt like such an asshole and such a creep for having cursed her. Like, how could you be that stupid? And I don't know if she's the same one. I sort of think she is, but I try not to get too concerned with the issue of identities.
Yeah.
What's important to me is the quality of relationship, and can that change? Does that quality of relationship change who I am? So yeah. I know a lot of people get all concerned with all the names and who's this and is there
the cartographers? Yes. Absolutely. And I think it comes through. It's definitely noted at least once in this book, and I've heard you speak about it before, is that it doesn't, we don't care so much about names. It doesn't matter. I was having the conversation with Chris Hancock about Kuan Yin, Mother Mary, and Isis, and these are all divine, and he goes, yeah, well, they all have those different names. So they're different. These are the how different cultures experience the one. It's all the one. There things can be simultaneously the one and a different face. I use the analogy of a die. There's a one die and it has 6 faces. It's still the die. It doesn't.
Let me offer another one, because
sure.
I've lately been studying the Neoplatonists, and there's a wonderful guy named Gregory Shaw who wrote a book called Hellenic Tantra, where he compares the work of Iamblichus, the great Neoplatonist, with classical Indian Tantra. Their worldview was, there's us humans down here. Then there's this realm they call the daimonic, which would be this realm we can have these personal relationships with, that Stang and David Gordon White were talking about, the ocean on which all religions are but waves. Above that is the nous, the realm of Platonic ideals. Above that is the one. Now, it is all one way up here somewhere, but we're way down here, gang. And the best way for us to improve the quality of our life and the depth of our being is by having these interactional personal relationships with the daimonic realm. I've noticed the Yoruba religion in Africa, which is an exceptionally important religion because it was the dominant mythology that got exported to the whole New World. So all the African diaspora religions of South America, the Caribbean, and America come from basically a Yoruba type.
Mm-hmm.
Probably stepping on some anthropologist is going to send you hate mail, but they have a very similar thing. There's us humans down here. They're these sort of spirits we can have personal relationships with. And they, interestingly, add ancestors. Ancestors are a big part of the spirits who we can have relationships with. And then there are gods up above that, higher gods. But they're so far away.
Yeah.
They almost don't matter. In quite a few, quote, primitive or tribal religions, they talk about a Deus Otiosus. The creator God is so far away, there's no way to reach him anymore. He doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. Or she doesn't matter. It's the relationships we can. Many indigenous North Americans have a very similar kind of layered thing. But in addition to what the Greeks called the daimonic and the ancestors, they have animals in there too, animal spirits. Mm-hmm. So it makes this realm of relatable spirits even larger.
What's coming up for me as you talk about that, Bob, is you've spoken before on this show about the first time you came on, you said, yeah, I have a problem with those non-dual types or whatever. I was talking about that. And what you're saying in this conversation is the idea that, yeah, it may be non-dual up there, and you say, or maybe it was, I have a problem with those determinism types or whatever. But the point is, like, that may be the case up at a different level, but you're in, you say in kindergarten, in this human incarnation, the rules of the game are, it goes better if you treat people with respect, if you are loving, if you are kind, if you take responsibility, for your actions. Yeah, there was something else there, but it vanished. I wanted to ask you, I don't know how you are on time, but I wanted to get, how much time do we have left?
I don't know. I could probably go another 15, 20.
Okay. All right. So you said, I got to ask you about this. The mask room. I was going on your YouTube channel and I saw one of the videos and you're in a room with a bunch of masks and a piano. Okay. You got to tell us and listeners tell me about this mask room. How did it come to be? And I want to know who plays piano in your house.
I do.
Okay.
I've been a bad piano player for more than 60 years.
Really?
Yeah. Jazz, blues.
Do you play out and perform?
No, I've played in a bunch of garage bands, but no, and I hardly play at all anymore.
And are there any recordings of your?
I hope not. I've been collecting masks my whole life, and I don't have any that are really super valuable, but I have probably 50, 100. And this is my office. If I look over in this direction, I can see maybe 50, 70 masks. Most of them tribal, a lot from Asia.
Mm-hmm.
And I just really love masks.
And so there's no stop. I know someone else a family member of mine who collects masks, and I'm always curious about what is it about masks that you are drawn to possessing or saying, I want to buy that and I want to mount that and put it with the others?
I don't know. It's purely intuitive. Something about force. It's not some of them are, I think most people would say, hideous, but in a powerful way. They seem to contain some power. One shaman lady said to my partner at the time, you should do something about those masks. Some of them are still alive and they're not friendly.
And how did that land on you?
I thought the lady didn't know what she was talking about.
There wasn't a scintilla of you that was open to.
Yeah. There was a little. And I do sometimes, sort of go out of my way to honor them and, welcome them and feed them and let them know they're valued here and all of that. But I don't think they're fundamentally, they're not fundamentally evil.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I had to ask about that, and I skipped, and I actually realized when I asked you about time that we've scratched the back of this podcaster manager part and all of his bullet points. So I wanted to give you maybe just an open-ended question about, is there anything that you, no, I know what it is. There is one last thing. I have it on here. How do you hope readers will feel after reading your book, Spirit?
Okay, it would matter more what Spirit wants. But what I hope is that you're excited and that you realize it's entirely possible for you to have a direct personal relationship with a power greater than yourself. It's waiting for you. There's a line, one of the reasons I've written books about Swedenborg and will do more is a wonderful, wonderful line from him that he said, most of us think spirit is an exotic bird of paradise that we have to go all the way around the planet and search in jungles for. No, 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 no. She's right here. And she so wants you to see her that she's brushing your eyelids with her wingtips. I think it's like that. And we are willfully blind. And if we just open up a little bit, this greater wisdom, which allows us to live more deeply It also allows us to access well springs of creativity and life force within us. It's there for each one of you. And we don't need some blank expert to tell us how to do this. And I would also like to say, domination structures hate this. Hate it. Because when you're connected to spirit in this way, you can't be bullied. You're like one of those beautiful things of seaweed that has its thing attached to the rock on the ocean floor. The biggest waves, the huge violent storm, it just has beautiful motion like this, you know? And if you don't have this kind of connection, you can be sold all sorts of garbage you don't need, and you can go into debt you'll have to pay your whole life, or you can start hating half the rest of the planet and devote your life to hatred and meanness. You can really be manipulated easily. But when you have a profound connection to spirit, that stuff doesn't work anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Domination structures don't like this.
And when you say domination structures, we can also hold that to be on the spirit side, the what you refer, or what spirit refers to as the dark ones, critters, UBs, those unwell beings that possess the heart mind of the human beings that are in those domination structures.
Yeah. And a domination structure can be a government, it can be a church, it can be an academic institution, all sorts of stuff. Could be psychotherapy modality.
Well, oh, say more, Bob. Tell us how you feel about. No, I there was something that you wrote in here. It said on diagnosis, and I have to tell you, I used to work directly. I was an in-network provider, right? I worked directly with the insurance companies. I don't do that anymore, but I do. I'm considered an out-of-network provider, and for people who want to use their out-of-network benefits, I got to give them this diagnosis rigmarole. And what you have in here, you say, I think spirit says it to you, or something about, talks directly about diagnosis and what it is and what it does. And I don't want to misquote you, so maybe I can invite you to say your 2 cents on diagnosis.
Well, I won't get what spirit said right, but it's dehumanizing, and it's demeaning, and it's incredibly arrogant, and it damages whoever you do it to. Let me put it, Martin Buber and the whole idea of personalism, which we should have discussed right from the beginning here. We're treating these spirits as persons, not as things, not as energies or objects. Persons, we have a personal relationship with them. And Buber said there's 2 basic words in the universe, and the words are actually word pairs: I, it, I, thou. And he at one point said, I don't think he stayed with this his whole life, the source of all evil is I, it. So having an I, thou relationship is the kind of relationship this dialogue encourages with spirit, and it's the kind of relationship we have with clients. When you diagnose someone, you've put them in the category of it. They're no longer a person, they're an it. That is destructive to them, and it's destructive to you. Another point that Buber makes that's super important, and we tend to forget, the I in the I, thou, and I, it, it's a different I. Which kind of relationship you allow yourself to live in determines who you are. And if you start relating to the world from an I, it position, it degrades you, and you also become an it.
That's a really important point that you're making is, and I'll just kind of re-summarize it, is if you are treating others as people, the you who's treating them as people is different from if you were treating others as it. The you is different. Yeah.
Yep. And Buber is explicit on this. You can have an I-thou relationship with a rock.
Right.
And that's very much animistic,
Well, and again, spirit says something in the volume 1, maybe. It's like, there are no things, Bob.
Yep. It's all relationships.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. All
And
right.
Yeah.
Well, Bob, I want to thank you. I know you've spoke. I'm gonna toss the last question that I had because I know you've spoken about it with on other. You've probably spoken about it on other episodes here and on other shows and stuff. But I just want to thank you again for coming on. For the maybe it doesn't feel like maybe you don't identify as courage, but for the courageous sharing, putting your humanity on full display in the book Spirit. People should pick it up. It's out now and it is an absolute gift. And thanks once again for coming on the show, Bob.
Okay. Thank you so much, Robin. Good to be chatting with you again.